Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us virtually today. My name is Erin Coggins, and I have had the wonderful opportunity to advise publications at Sparkman High School in Harvest, Alabama for the past 18 years, yearbook, newspaper, and online, and I'm looking forward to exploring a little bit of broadcast. When asked to present to you guys for the long week, I decided to do a combination. We are going to look at accessorizing today. That is your book and newspaper, as well as a little dip into caption writing. So, newspaper and yearbook design is all about accessorizing nowadays. The big question here is kind of like looking at putting together an outfit for you fashionistas out there. I am a huge J. Crew fan for one reason, is that they love to mix and match things that you normally wouldn't think would go together. So it's really cool to look at how they put things together. And I think that same approach can be done for your book and newspaper design. So here we have in this first slide here, a very fashionable young lady. She has on her sunglasses, which is an accessory. Big earrings. She is mixing orange with a little crimson there for you roll tie fans. And of course, she has her purse. So we all know that an outfit cannot be complete without shoes. So I'm going to ask you, what shoes look better with the outfit? Okay. So do you go with the now neutral leopard or the true neutral kind of goldish color here? You know, what could make this outfit stand out? Do you go basic, or do you take that leap and add the little spark with the leopard shoes? However, I prefer the leopard shoes, adding just a little bit. So let's take that same exact position, right, and putting together some of our designs. So I've given you a great example here of a newspaper layout or one-page layout here. And let's look at it from its accessories, okay? How is it accessorized? Well, if you look at the 12 in the headline there, it's got a big pop of color. We see this red repeated in an otherwise black and gray kind of layout. So that pop of color. We see a mixture of typefaces. We have a very bold typeface. Notice how they bolded specifically to draw attention to the word suicide there, which is the topic. The dominant image is large. It is also interesting. It's a variety of color. We have that additional information down the right-hand side there. These are types of symptoms or signs of depression. So it's another accessory. It's another mod. We have a very creative infographic as well. With that infographic, we have the little round percentages. They just did not take this poll and spit it out there, right, in numbers. They actually designed it and made it creative. And I do apologize for not having the H there in infographics. And then, of course, we have our story, right? Our main story with its headline. Now, what would this design have looked like without those little bit of accessories? Well, we would have had a black and white page with just a story, right, on a reverse background. So the accessories, the little things, the added things make this much more appealing as well as informative. So we're going to look at your tools. What do you have in your closet to use? All right. So these are the types of things we have in our closet to use. Oops. You can play with fonts. You can play with your typography, right? Bold, italicized, different types of ways to present those fonts. Color. You've got color. If you're not a black and white newspaper print, but you still can use shades there. So playing with your color. Your content. How do we make our content stand out? And of course, those little extra things that we can do to accessorize. So Let's look at those fonts and typography first. Like leg warmers, which we no longer wear, not yet anyway, 12-point Times New Roman is just not an option for you, okay? So we're going to look at a few things when we look at fonts and typography. You've got the choice of a sans serif and a serif type of font. I always tell my students a sans serif and a serif. When you have a serif, you have legs, right? Or you can stick your arms out. You have something that's sticking out. And when you have a sans serif, you're straight like an arrow, right? I suggest using no more than 3 fonts in your publication period. That's Yearbook. Pick 3 good fonts or 2 fonts or even 1 with a variation to play off of. And know your vibe. Your fonts and your typography, they speak the vibe of your publication. If you want whimsical, find a font that's whimsical. If you're have a strong voice, you might want a very bold font. So know your vibe and know what it looks like. Here's an example of an opening of a yearbook. And that stand up, right, is a very bold, see the period that they have there after stand up is a very bold kind of font. All right, they fill it with the picture there to really make a statement. Notice the picture coordinates with that stand up, and it's very in your face. So this yearbook had a very strong voice to support that, and it is seen, of course, in this opening. Look at some of these other fonts. The one on the left side, Good Morning Sunshine, that's using a font very bold, right? And see the mixture of the serif and sans serif there. Makes a great balance. On the right side, what's on your list? That font matches that very topic, right? Or that very theme. It's a handwritten font, right? And as you can see, they kind of carried it out with the handwriting on their hands as well. So it matches. It's a very good example of what the tone is. Another yearbook opening here where they've played with not just their fonts, but they've played with how they've done them. Some are bold, some are outline, some are tilted. It's talking about showing you pride, and as you can see, they've really made things stand out. So they've played with it. This is not an opening that is just a list of words, right? They've made it an accessory here. It is a design element. So don't be afraid to play with your fonts, okay? Just notice these are all in the same family. They've just kind of altered them and played with them a little bit. Again, playing with a big letter here, taking that font and really blowing it up, and playing with, if you'll look at Begin Again, how they've had the IN in both of them. Playing with the size and the shape of fonts to make them an accessory. They're a necessity, but they can also be an accessory. Now, when we come to fashion, the second thing is, remember, less is more. Less is more. Take a look at that outfit there. The pink and the yellow, really bright, stand out. So we're going to look at color now. Okay, so here's some things about color. We want to use contrast, right? Find colors that go together. We do not want a spread, as I tell my students, that looks like a rainbow kind of threw up on, right? We want to have a color plan, and we want to be able to use contrast in those colors. I've already said that, use color sparingly, always have a plan. School colors are always an option. They're not required. A lot of schools say, hey, you know, for a traditional yearbook, we got to use our black and gold. We are crimson and black at Sparkman High School. This past year, we did a navy book. The year before that, we did a white. We've done a gray and purple. We've done all kinds of different books. So you kind of want that color to match what your theme is. So don't be afraid to veer from those school colors if you want. And when we go to contrast again, play off different shades of your color. even if you use your school color, you can do this and kind of add a little bit of accessorizing. When we talk about contrast here, we're talking about, as you can see here, this is a black and white spread. And blue is very much standing out as a contrast of color. It really makes certain things stand out. And in places where you might think, well, that's really useless, it really comes into play. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about this upper right hand here where it looks like kind of like a bluish triangle connected to a kind of a blue square. The 5 being bold, again, you're accessorizing with your font, but you're also adding a little bit with it with color. And so the blue is a very great contrast with this black and white and this particular spread. Okay. Now, when I look at the spread originally, you might go, wow, that's a lot of color. This particular yearbook staff had a plan to use that color. So they had all these colors on their cover, as you should. Any color that you use should show up on that cover. Remember, your cover is an introduction to, well, you're selling your audience on what they're going to see. So this particular yearbook staff had a color plan where they were going to use these particular colors in different ways. So the next month you might have looked at where it says the date August, September, it could have been pink. The next month, blue. So although it is very bold, and some people shy away from things like that, they did have a plan. It's not just, let's throw every color we want to on that page and see what fits. So if you're going to use a lot of color, be sure to have a nice plan. This is a good example of using some school colors. The school here is kind of a crimson and kind of a gold. I would call maybe a Florida State kind of color. As you can see, they've taken in the headline, 5 of a kind, they have taken that headline and used kind of a variation of that crimson, which kind of makes it a little pinkish color. And so they use that. It's still the same color. It's still school colors. It's in that same family. And that's the one way they got around, of course, using that. If you'll look down at the bottom where it says before, during, and after, you will notice that they've taken a variation there, a gradient rather, and have kind of added a little different color there toward the end. So they're playing with color, they're playing with variations, and they're playing with gradients, but still staying true to their school color. And of course, if you're a fashionista, you have a black dress. And there's nothing wrong with going to that go-to for an event, and that is the black dress. So when we look at our black dress, let's go back to the basics, really, of design. And that's content, photographs, headlines, and copy and captions, okay? So this is our basic design, okay? So then we're going to practice accessorizing it. So here is our basic design. This is a spread that we had, that we did a few years back. As you can see, we have our headline. Our headline is designed using brackets that we use throughout the book. Design your headlines. It's very important to design those headlines in your book. We have then our traditional secondary headline, and you can see where our copy is. It's not traditional copy. This year we decided to do questions and answers instead of just strictly a copy based on the year. We decided to do it a little differently. As you can see, we have photos throughout the book. We have quite a few photos, as you can see in the way we laid out this. We have a folio at the bottom there, the bottom right, where you can see our page number. We kind of always, with your folio, be sure to list who design credits, as well as your content there. And of course, you have your captions. Every photograph needs a caption. Let me stress that. Every photograph in a yearbook needs a caption. Either needs a detailed caption or at least some type of name identification. Okay, so this is our basic stuff. Now we played with it a little bit, but we have all the basic stuff, right? So I'm going to take a little side note here, and we're going to go captions. And I want to show you the way Sparkman High School does captions and the way you should consider perhaps doing your captions in your yearbook. First sentence is always written in present tense, okay? It is going to do those things. You're going to identify, call it an identification sentence a lot. Answers the who, the what, the where, sometimes the why and the how. But it definitely has to identify who is it, what are they doing, and where are they, okay? And then you need to add a second sentence. This one is written in past tense. And I like to say it's a good place to put information not seen in the photo, okay? So that first one's going to describe that photo, and the second one's going to give us information that you didn't know, right? But just looking at the photo. Now, this calls for reporting. This calls us for being present. But it's a little hard work. But remember, your yearbook is designed for 20 years down the road, just as much as it's designed for today. So the more details you can put in it, the better off you are. And you can always have these options, okay? So always do that first and second sentence, but you can always do these as well. You can always introduce your caption with a bold lead in, okay? It goes first to set up the caption, right? It's something that grabs attention. It's not a complete sentence. It's kind of a tag, okay? Speaking in your vocabulary, a hashtag, okay? So don't be afraid to be witty. Just don't get cheesy. Sometimes we like to get cheesy and we have a little fun with that, but don't be afraid to be witty. And then of course, optional is after that second sentence that you have a quote from someone in that photograph, okay? This adds additional information as well. Now, some people will forego the second sentence and add the quote. Some people will do every one of these. Just pick what you want to do and stick with it. Be consistent with it throughout the book. I prefer doing all of them. Also find a way to get a photo credit in, whether it's after that quote or if you just do a byline somewhere on the page that say all photos by. Now this is how this caption should look, okay? So Jumping with Joy is our bold lead in. Okay? It captures that picture. You see how it connects. Okay? You always want it to connect. Having just scored her second goal of the game against rival East High, senior Macy Harding allows her teammate, junior Meg Jones, to grasp her in a celebratory hug. All right, so first sentence is present tense, right? She allows. We identify Macy, we identify Meg, we know what they were doing, right? They were playing in a soccer game and she scored. Second sentence, past tense. Harding's goal gave the team a 3-2 lead over the Trojans, eventually leading the team to a victory and a spot in the first round of the playoffs. That second sentence follows up. It tells us something we did not see in this photograph, okay? First sentence, we see this. They're jumping up, they're happy, they're hugging, right? The second sentence tells us about, man, what happened here is the result of the action, right? So we know then that they won and they went on to get a spot in the playoffs. And then we added a quote. I cannot believe it when that second goal soared through the goalie's hands. Meg jumped on me immediately, giving me a hug and a high five, Harding said. That gives her a voice, allows her to be in the yearbook or publication a little more. So great caption writing can really make your book, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot stress that enough. I cannot stress enough that every photograph needs one. I cannot stress enough that you've got to write these detailed for the future. Right? So we got all the basics done. You saw that, right? Everything basic. Now we're going to add the bling. Okay, that black dress looks much better when it has some jewelry. And so we're going to do this by introducing to you guys a list of what we call infographics. We call it secondary coverage. We call it modular type design. Whatever you want to call it in your classroom, but it's extra stuff. It's question and answers. It's facts and figures. It's maybe a type of list. It could be a quote box collection. And it could be some kind of chart. It's the bling, right? So let's take a look at this, or a dia chart. Love dia charts. You're going to love them as well. So let's go back to this spread that I kind of showed you basic, okay? I want you to take a look at the things we added. We could have very easily cut off that entire bottom half, right? We could have blown up those pictures at the top and really have made big, huge pictures, okay? And if that's your style, fine, stick with that. A lot of times you can do big pictures and add the extra. We decided to go the extra mile. So what we did is we had both our boys and girls teams playing that day at Wallace State, and both advanced. Go Senators. And so as you can see here, we did a story mod. Those are the two mods on the inside, spaced equally apart. And that was a good way for us to add some of those collection photographs, right? Some of those, we had such great photos we wanted to use to celebrate a little more. And then we decided, hey, we had some pretty good players that day that really made impact. So we made them in a quote mod. Okay, we pull out the picture and we just basically get a quote from them. As you can see, we had the first time around. So we're going to have, we highlighted a ball player that was their first time play at Wallace. And then we had a last time around, which was a senior ball player on the girls' side. So we added a little extra. Now, after looking at this, I can tell you one thing. We had two group pictures in those story mods. I advise you not to do that. They're too small. Save those group pictures for somewhere else. And then we had a quick graphic that we kind of put in our book throughout the book, and that was the who, what, when, where. And it kind of gave a little bit more detail that you normally would have seen in regular copy. And since we did a non-traditional copy, we decided to kind of get the time. So in here it tells us what time we played, where did we play, where did the student section sit, where did the cheerleaders arrive, and all that kind of stuff. And so that was a quick read copy, what we call a quick read. Now, let's look at this one. This is a newspaper layout, okay? This is a little different. Same thing applies if you're looking at your book. This feature happened to be on ADHD, okay? So there's a lot to cover here. As you can see, we have a main story that goes down the center, right? This is going to be that main story that addresses all of this, okay? Now, we've got a lot of other information that we want people to read in kind of a rather quick manner. So as you can see at the top right here, that's an accessory, right? It is a quick graphic that kind of fills us in about, man, I need to study, what can I do, okay? We get that impression what this spread's about. Under it is the consequences. And this is another accessory, right? It's a great illustration there, a great drawing. And out to thinking about it, it's talking about the consequences of taking Adderall, kind of studying, and to get off that, to kind of cure your ADHD. So it's a quick read. It's another accessory. It's a mod. Over to the left side, we've got a personal column. Look how it's accessorized. The writer, her photograph is included. We have a drop cap there behind it, or of the eye for In Medication We Trust, right? And this column is a personal column about having to deal with that medication and kind of doing a little research there. We're not finished with this accessorizing, because on the left side of the page, we want to present the percentage, right, of folks using these medications. And we don't write it, we design it here, right? And you can see the different types of medicine that has been prescribed. Then they want to do percentage as well. In 2009 and 2014, the difference, how do they do that? Graphically, right? It's not just written there, it is graphic. And then the same thing with the line draft. So there's lots of accessories here. Even the color Play with the typography as far as contrast. Think about the way information is presented. It's not boring. It is definitely a blinged out outfit. And if you look at how many accessories do you see a lot. I'm counting here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Even the bylines with the red around them really are accessories. So there's quite a bit of accessories on this spread. Let's go back to Yearbook for a minute. Right? There's so much we can put into Yearbook, a lot of stuff. And we might not want to do an entire spread on social media, right? Some people do. So this is the student section or the people section, portrait section, however you want to address it. And they've really, really used accessories to take advantage of their editorial space, right? So we have the photographs in the middle. We have on the left side, what's your favorite account on Twitter? It gets more voices in. It also adds, so not only is content there, it is also graphic. I mean, look at how they did their graphics. It's really cool. They have a question there. They have on the right-hand side, they're sticking with the same topic. They're sticking with Twitter. Okay. What's the best way to flirt on Twitter? I found that question. And then they did a quick little story here about tweeting. Now, look at that. Just look at the flocking to Twitter. Look at all the different ways they accessorized. The headline is accessorized, right? There's a drop cat with the eye there. The pull quote is kind of put in there. The girl who wrote it in her circle there. I don't write circles too much, but lots of people do. They cut off photos a little bit, so be very careful using those. But it works here. Okay, it's really accessorized. That's not boring. I want to look at it. You'll also notice at the very top between by the folio, they have some people that they've asked students, right? A specific question about Twitter. What did they add? They had a small picture along with their quote. Now that's hard to do, guys. It's a lot of work to commit to something, like to have that on every page. But how really cool is that? This page is accessorized. Let's look at this particular page here. This is again same yearbook I used a few years ago, and we have the accessories here. Now, we wanted to really cover how lunch is social time. If you're not covering what happens in your cafeteria, you probably should in some form. So you can't really get a lot of pictures in the cafeteria. They all look the same, right? And I'm not saying that we had the best pictures here, because we did not. This is why we added our other information. So our example, our really theme is, hey, it's social time. Okay, so we made sure we got a dominant picture where we had people socializing. Okay, we have a smaller picture there, kids listening to music, and then of course we have a picture of someone making an announcement during lunchtime. But we had to find another way, so we did diet charts. And diet charts is exactly what you're seeing here and what's in your lunchbox. So we got some students and we had them withdraw all the items in their lunchbox, and we took the pictures and we made it work, right? We did the same thing with a plate lunch. We looked at prices. Remember, 20 years down the road, you're going to want to know, hey man, I wonder how much I paid for lunch, right? Or your kids going to school and they're paying $5 for school lunch. And you're like, man, we just paid $2.50. So we did a die chart there as well. Our other accessory is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so what we did there is we found one chair in the lunchroom or the cafeteria, and we went to that chair every period. We had 5 lunch periods, and we talked to the person in that particular chair, took their picture, and wanted to see kind of, hey man, why do you choose that chair? Why that specific place to eat your lunch? So this is accessorized. It's not a normal, typical yearbook spread. We found ways to do information other than text. I'm going to give you some examples from the real world and from yearbooks, and that you can kind of take and use to accessorize your your yearbooks or your newspaper one, either one, your publication. To the left is actually a hamburger wrapper. I cannot remember at the time the restaurant, but it's a hamburger wrapper, right? And as you can see, the restaurant took really good advantage of giving you information in a very graphic way. So you could use something like this in your yearbook or publication in order to design some infographics to give information in a very quick read, right? People, your generation like things that are easy to read. This is graphic, quick, and it can add not only content, but can accessorize your page. The one on the right-hand side, 10 things you should know. Okay, so you picked a random student and you ask them 10 things you should know about Joe Wright, right? Using, accessorizing between your fonts and your typography. Really your typography here, you're adding a photo, and you're really playing with designing text here. He says number 10, he gets his hair color from his great grandma. Those are things you might want to know about Joe Wright. You might not want to know, never wanted to know, but now you know, right? It's a great way to highlight a student. It's a great way to get content into your yearbook. Kids like to be seen in their publication. So the better ideas you have for doing that, you know, go for it to get as many in there as possible. This can be used for a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be about a student. It may be 10 things you should know about attending East High School, you know, 10 things freshmen should know as they come in, 10 things the quarterback does to prepare. There's all kinds of different ways you can spin this. Again, we have another on the left side, another hamburger wrapper. And I chose this one to show you because just the playing with the font, the contrast, the application to the typography, that look at all that stuff, and it goes together. You know, you wouldn't think about it, but think about playing with your headlines this way. All kinds of things like that you can do. It's just to really motivate you or inspire you to play with it. And then you have on the right side, this could be a really cool element in your yearbook. It could be a really cool layout for your newspaper as well. It's just putting all these little news briefs that you get and throwing it together. So if your publication comes out, like we do a magazine, it comes out 6 times a year. So a lot of stuff happens, and you want maybe some quick reads. Maybe this is what happened in clubs since you published last. Okay, it's a great mix here of accessorizing. You have color that's been played with. You have graphics that's been played with. You have square photographs. You have a cutout. You have some logos. You have pictures cut out into a circle. You have an illustration of a dog. You have numbers. You have contrast in fonts and typography. You have everything that I talked about in accessorizing all on one page. And I don't know about you guys, but I think it is very graphically appealing. It is a lot of information presented in a way that I want to read. Your generation wants to read, your students want to read. Say you don't have a lot of photographs for clubs, right? In your yearbook. Sometimes that's hard to get, right? So you can do a page like this, do it as a double spread and do all kinds of things like that. And there's everything in one. It can be a great splash page. Perhaps you do one for the sophomore class. Maybe you do one for the junior class. Maybe you do one for the senior class as a splash page. In newspaper and news magazine, I see this working in a lot of different ways. This could just be taken and shrunk down and been an infographic for maybe a big story. Maybe you're doing a big story on plagiarism in your school, and you can take this and adapt it. You can just take pieces of it out. Look at the part where it says with the pull quote there on the left side of the page, or how they did the tweets. So it's really a lot of stuff together that really works well, that you can pull out even on its own. Another yearbook spread I wanted to show you where they, this actually is a newspaper spread rather, where we're really looking at color here, okay? Again, a lot of colors you not necessarily would not put together, but look how it is done. The headline goes across this picture. It's a very great illustration of a picture there. Nice introduction to the story before you actually get to the story. The text of the percentages and the way that is laid out is a unique way. It's not just written there, right? It's actually designed. You have a folio at the bottom with the circle. That's the same color that draws it all in. Look at the placement of the pull quote. It's at the bottom. It is not interrupting text. The flow of text, your eye goes immediately to the second one. And so looks really, really cool. Let's go to the, I do apologize, my phone is ringing. Let's go to this one. And what I really like about this one is not necessarily as much of the design as the headline, okay? Headlines can really make a difference in all kinds of things, yearbook, newspaper, or whatever. But look, it connects with the picture so well. Get real. And that is just so creative. Sometimes I'm like, wow, I wish I could be that creative, right? But look at the elements that they put in here. I like the fact that they break up the story with these headlines, okay? If you're writing a long story, do that. It's an accessory that really serves a great purpose. Also, you've got the lures that are used as a little bit of graphic. We might find those a little cartoonish, but they work with the theme here. Notice under Get Real, the text has a little bit of contrast where they've played with the bold and the very thin. It's just a really simple kind of layout that works. Again, that headline, that real big typography, that's a catchy headline. I mean, nothing can beat that. It's really cool. Here's a yearbook spread again, where they're playing with the color. They're playing with the contrast, the headline not missing a beat. If you have a headline that goes straight across your page, rethink it. Let's do something cool. Let's play with the size and contrast of our fonts and typography. You've got the pull quote in a different color. You have the bold lead-ins in a color. You have beat the drum on the other side. This could have been just, some at 24 hours before kickoff. And they kind of put it in a timeline matter mixed with pictures. Look at how beat the drum goes with the drums. It's a different way of presenting information, and it's and it is an accessory. Drop cap, if you can see the faded drop cap behind the text, those kinds of things just are accessorizing and otherwise normal type of yearbook font, yearbook page. This is incorporating what I call a list, and I love these. I would love to execute these in my yearbook. Maybe that's for the upcoming year. Again, you have a picture here. Perhaps soccer is, if it's like us, it comes late in the year and it's right before yearbook's deadline, and so it's so difficult sometimes to get photographs. So perhaps this is the reason this yearbook staff had to work with one picture. But they really did a little bit of Photoshop on that picture. I guess you can tell where they really do a tone to them well. And you've got a big headline again that is played with. But let's focus on the list on the other side. It's what do you do? The last stand, 5 keys from goalie Scott Parker, and he gives you 5 things, and they're all stop the ball, because to him that's the most important thing. But he expounds under each of those lists. Lists are cool. It could be the list of things you need for AP biology. A list of things that you keep in your bag if you run cross country. There's a lot of things you can do with the list. Now, here's another yearbook page that my kids did a few years ago, and it's a tech page. Now, if you want to do a technology page, sure, you can go out and take pictures of all kinds of kids playing on their phones, but they're all going to look the same, and that's not fun. So we start with our headline, what the tech, play off words, right? Would have made it bigger if I were to do this again, really make that stand out. But let's start on the left side here. We took the numbers and really made them large, polling our students. And if you're going to poll students, poll a good amount. We polled 100 here. Sometimes it's difficult to poll a lot of kids. You really should poll a lot more than 100, depending on your school size. We're a rather large school. We probably should have upped that. Oh, crack. As you see, everything has a headline. So this was before or after. Under it, we have some stories, 2 students commenting on how they cracked your phone. And technology also is Fitbit, Apple Watch, laptop stickers. So we went and found people who had those things and had them talk about why they had that. Games, of course, were big. So Candy Crush versus Pac-Man. And we did all kinds of different games that people were to choose. And we did an illustration of Pac-Man eating Candy Crush, as you can see. We have a student there loaded down with tons of technology. And so we've asked particular students what kinds of things do they do. So do you have a pop socket? Okay. How often do you use your headphones or your Beats, right? What type of pictures do you take? Or now we have those Apple, I always call them earbuds, and the kids laugh at me. What types of pictures do you take if you carry a camera around? How productive are you on that laptop? What do you use it for? And so we also went through with apps and all those kinds of things that you use. And then we had a headline here at the top in the box that's life, and we had kids talking about what about technology irritates them, right? Because that's life, oh well, that's life. And so we had covered a lot of information here without photographs. We used accessories instead of our traditional photographs. So, that's a lot of stuff I just handed to you and a lot of talking. But I wanted to show you kind of what we use when we plan our outfits. How do we plan our outfits, in other words? Again, we have another picture over here by J. Crew where she's accessorized to the max, right? So this is what we give or we start each of our spreads with. It's a story planning sheet. We do this for yearbook and newspaper. So we have storytelling devices. So what devices do you plan to use on your spread? And you simply circle what you want to use. A bio box, there's a quiz on there, a question and answer, dia chart, all those good things that you can use for a storytelling device. So you circle, if you're designing the spread, the 2 that you're going to use. Okay? And what is your story idea? What is the main idea you're wanting to get across? Okay, your copy. What is that copy going to be about? And then we have storytelling methods. So once you pick your devices, then you'll go in with your storytelling methods and kind of come up with 4 ways that you could tell this story. You're not going to use all of them, but 4 potential ways you could use or you could tell that story. And then we have a sketch area that must be completed. And this is sketching out what that spread or page is going to look like. So plan that outfit before you even get started. Know where you're going with your accessories before you even get started. I do have this available if you would like it. My email address was at the very front of this presentation, but it is ecoggins@mcssk12.org. just drop me an email and say, hey, I want the Making the Outfit story planning sheet. You can play with that any way that you want to make it yours. Now, let me say one thing before I end. Design is continuous, okay? The first design you put out there is not going to be the one you go with. If it is, rethink that strategy, okay? Design is something that is constantly changing. You can always make things fit better. You can always make things look better. You can always play with text. You can always reposition a picture. So you've got to think about all the different things that you can do with it before you even say, hey, it's finished. So keep working hard on design. I can't stress enough about the captions. And think about accessorizing. Go to magazines. Old Magazine is a great one, real simple. Magazines, you know, those things that they sell at the grocery store, checkout lines. Use them though. Use them to find ways to accessorize and make things your own. Thank you for joining my session. If there's anything I can do for you, anything, share this, Making the Outfit, give you some other pointers, please feel free to call me. Good luck on your upcoming publications, and I hope to see you all at ASPA in February.